Hi, this is John LeCount. I wanted to review and share with you Snap Manager, SnapCenter for vCenter plugin, the VMware plugin. Yeah, I can't speak today. SnapCenter plugin for VMware vSphere. And I wanted to compare both backing up and recovery on LUNs versus NFS exports for VMware. In this case, I'm using a lab environment that is, specifically in this case, all virtual except for the underlying backend storage that is not NetApp. So this environment that you're looking at here is an internal virtual environment. And I wanted to show you first the hardware that it's running on to see that there's not a whole lot of magic and why one might go faster than the other. So also to the key demonstrate the differences in restore time between the two. And we can do a backup just to show you that as well if you'd like. So as you can see, the first host is the ESXi host running 6.7. It has 8 processors and looks like 16 gig of RAM. And the other host is exactly the same thing. They do have a little different load on them as far as VMs, even though we got KRS configured. Let's take a look at what VMs are running where. So this host is not running my 2 test subjects, which you can see over here is test iSCSI and test NFS. It's running the appliances for both SnapCenter for VMware, as well as I have a Windows SnapCenter box, but it will not be part of this demonstration. Currently, I've turned off the VSC box just to keep the load a little lower as far as memory utilization. It's not necessary for this demo. So on the other host 41, it is hosting both the NFS and iSCSI Windows machines. Go to them now just so you can see their specs. So you'll see it's Windows 2006. They're just deployed templates. They're not really doing anything. They're part of a domain just for the SnapCenter for Windows component so that I can install those plugins, but that's not necessary for this. So you can see the specs, 2 CPUs, almost 8 gigs of RAM, 40 gig hard drive. On the NFS, it's showing 40 gig used, and the one on iSCSI, same specs, CPUs, 8 gig hard drive. It's showing a little bit more storage usage. So NFS is doing deduplication, a little more space efficient, where the iSCSI is not. So obviously the VM has a VMDK, as well as there's log files and what have you that go along with the VM. Okay, so let's dive into the SnapCenter for vSphere plugin. So pretty common. We're going to go take a look at our resource groups. We'll let this happen real quick to give you a view of the interface. So all my jobs have been successful right now. We have a single job running every day, the daily. There's some VMs out there that aren't protected. That's what this is telling us. And there's nothing going to a secondary target either. It's not there. All my jobs are successful. We have a policy that says run daily, keep 7 days worth. And here's our resource groups are the backups. So you'll see that we have a backup on the data store called NFS data, the daily backup. And then we have one called NetApp TLAC 04 daily. You can heckle the names all you want, that's fine. And we'll go back and look. So these are all set to run daily. They're using that policy, right? And the last time they ran was complete. I'm going to go ahead while we're sitting here and run these again, just to show you how fast a backup happens. So it's running, started. And I don't expect a whole lot of difference between these two as far as runtime to complete a backup. I have to refresh the interface. It's a little slow, but it's still running. If you're familiar with NetApp storage, snapshots happen almost instantaneously. They like to say typically less than a second, but there is coordination between the application, in this case, vSphere, communicating with NetApp and then getting a response and validating that it finished. So we'll say the backup took from 5:28:49, so there's 11 seconds plus 21, 33 seconds to do that backup. Do the other one. Should take about the same amount of time. And it's complete, and it took exactly, no, 1 second less. 1 second less, so it took 31 seconds. The other one took 32, okay. So now we're gonna go do a restore, right? So we need to go back out. We'll take a look at the, just to validate the data stores that we said we were on. Take a look at that real quick. So NFS data. See, oh, I put something else there. That's true. I have more data sitting on this now. I have that because I liked being able to back up my SnapCenter for Windows box. It's also there. There's the test NFS VM. And we'll see that it's there. And, you know, it's been changed around recently. So we're pretty sure it's log file. It's still alive and active, regardless if it was on or off, but this demo is a live one. And then the TLAC 4 has the test iSCSI box on it. Right, no smoke and mirrors here. We'll go take a look at our VMs, and we could have also saw where they live by looking here. TLAC and so let's do iSCSI first. So we're going to do a restore. And a lot of times I wouldn't do this full restore because normally you just want something off the machine, not a full. Let's see, when do we want to get the restore from? I just ran one obviously, but let's grab the one that ran this morning at 10:13. Just so you can't say, oh, you know, you grabbed the most recent, not much changed, or whatever reason you might want to say if you're not familiar with how NetApp and SnapCenter works. So we're going to go ahead and restore it. Normally I would maybe, if I wanted just a piece of it, I would restore it a different way, like mount a VMDK to this machine or another. And if I wasn't sure that this restore was the one I wanted, I might protect the existing VM a couple different ways. I could create a backup right now before I do a restore. That way I could revert back, which is similar to what I did. If I were to rename this VM, I couldn't do the restore because I'd have to, I mean, I could do the restore, but I wouldn't be able to keep a copy because I would have to right click on the VM to do the restore. They changed SnapCenter's VMware from BSC a little bit. It used to be able to go through look backup jobs and do it that way. And I probably could a different way, but this is easiest. So I don't care. This isn't anything specific on the VM. I just wanted to point out that this may not always be the way you want to do a restore, depending on if you want the entire VM and all the data or just a piece. I am going to, at the end of this, just add in a demo of the single file restore or multiple file restore that I ran across lately. There's other videos out there, but I think it's good for this video as well. So we don't have a choice to restore it anywhere else because, again, we're replacing the entire VM. You would have that choice for different processes. If we're going to hit finish, it's warning us we're going to overwrite this VM, which is fine. So now we're going to watch the process here. And you see it's doing a few things. So first it kicks off the restore, and we'll be able to watch the start and end time of this restore to get the full time, but mounting the data store. So what NetApp has to do is create a flex clone of basically this volume, which is a snapshot, right? It grabs a snapshot from the restored point in time I want, and it makes it read writable as a flex clone, which is basically a next to zero space copy of the original, so that it can mount it as a new data store. It will then have to rename it, and you're seeing it show up now. It's right here. And it will find the VM, and you'll notice that at that point, I didn't have that other VM living here. I only had test iSCSI, not the SnapCenter for Windows one. Now it's finished mounting. As soon as it does that, it shuts off the existing VM, and it starts the restore process. Go back to virtual machines. You'll see it deleted the virtual machine. It's gone at the moment, and as part of this, it will put it back because it has to unregister it to replace it. It's the safe way to do it anyway. There you see it's showing back up. At some point, it's going to power on, and where it powers on is where I'm going to say Essentially the restore is complete, right? We obviously have to wait for the operating system to boot, and that's harder to measure. And so I'm going to use for this test how long it takes to power on for both of them. So I want you to see how long it takes to finish the complete restore of this one compared to on an NFS. The VM still has not been powered on. It's getting close. There's the power on. So power on occurred at 5:32. The backup started at 5:33. So it took us 2 minutes and 4 seconds to power on for a restore. That's not bad in any way, shape, or form. That's pretty good. What it's doing next is a relocate, aka a storage vMotion. So it's going to move the VM, an existing snapshotted data store, the Flex clone, right? The one with the weird name. Going to move it back to the original location here. So once that finishes, something that they've added, this did not always exist in the SnapCenter for VMware. They're going to clean it all up for us, so we don't have to go clean it up ourselves, which is really awesome. One of the processes that used to exist with LUNs, you did a restore, was created the Flex clone, and then it copied the VM from the volume that it was on, the Flex clone volume data store, over to the original data store while it was offline. So you were waiting much longer before you restore and to power on, right? Much less getting your data, which depending on the operating system and how much you got going on, it's going to be even longer. NetApp has changed that process. So they restore it and power it on first with the Flex clone, then they move it afterward. So time to store is faster, right? You're not done with the process because it's not fully cleaned up, but you're getting to your data, which I think is the most important part. And I applaud them for making that change. Well, we got a few more minutes. I actually don't think it's a few more minutes, a little bit longer. So I got pop-up on my screen because I was remote desktop into that machine and I would have lost that connection. Makes sense? So obviously, since this is all entirely virtual environment, this isn't probably the most high performant environment for restore to say how fast can it actually be done. It's not bad. The key is, right, we're testing this restore process on the same environment with two different protocols for data stores. Since I'm using iSCSI, they're both using the same networking. They're both using 10 gig interfaces, the same 10 gig interface. We just use a different VLAN for our iSCSI over NFS because it's a lab environment. Again, it's not the most ideal. I have other traffic going across the VM's VM network traffic. It's also going across it, vMotion traffic. So it's all being shared, and the storage traffic with both this virtual environment and the physical hosts as well. So there's quite a bit going on there. But we're getting close. Since we talked about the remote desktop and the OS, let's verify we can log back in. So it's completed the vMotion. It's now getting rid of the data store, right? It's unmounting the FlexClone data store, and we are done. I'm getting told that I can't get to it yet, that machine. Yeah, remote desktop. Oh, there it goes. And it might have been I hit it just as it was cutting over. As you know, if you ping us vMotion, it can drop a ping. So how do we know it's that machine? Yeah, That's a pretty good sign. That's not a guarantee. Ah, here we go. Server manager will tell us that machine. As that loads, let's go in the background here and look at how long this took total. Our restore. Here it is. So 33 to 30 times again. 33 to 39:11. So it took just under 6 minutes. 5 minutes, 55 seconds, it looks like. Okay. And just to validate this was the machine we're talking about. I didn't prove it before by looking at the name. There's the test iSCSI. That is indeed the box. Just mirroring. Okay, let's do the same restore in the NFS system. SnapCenter, restore. We're going to pick the same one that happened, only it happened a little later. It happened at 11 o'clock. We have them staggered a little bit, so it happened at 11. Well, I might be missing one. Maybe I didn't have my lab environment up or something at this moment. I don't have, I don't know, same exact time. Not too worried about it. Not the current one. That's the key for me. And I want it to power on because that's what we're testing. Back to the same place, and away we go. It's going to overwrite. Yes, that's fine. So there the restore started. Now watch the difference in process. Primarily, do I see any more data stores? Do I see, let's see it, unregistered the machine, registering a machine, still doing a restore. I didn't see any data stores get created or flex clone mounting, that kind of stuff. Look, NFS is still there, so that's what it registered. There's power on right there. We got to power on 5:41:48 and restore started. So it took us 35 seconds to power on. I already forget what the other one was. A minute something, wasn't it? Let's go look again. Restore 33, power on the first one, 35:19. So yeah, it was 2 minutes and 3 seconds, it looks like. So we got to this one's power on. By the way, it's done already, the restore. Power on happened at 41:48. So it took us 35 seconds, powered on, and it took us all of 45 seconds to do an entire restore. Because, so let's talk about why. And I expect to be faster, tested this before, and it is faster. And why is that? Well, because it's not a block protocol, it's not a LUN. I don't need to mount a copy of the LUN, so I don't have to coordinate with the NetApp, create a flex clone, which still didn't take a very long time, but it's still some commands to run and get validation from the application that it's done. I don't have to rescan my HBA to see that new LUN, then mount it, then resignature it, and then rename it, things you saw, and then register the VM and power it on. Instead, it uses, there's a couple of key pieces to this that I'm pointing out. Both of the data stores are supporting hardware acceleration, which is VAAI. And so that is important for the VMware restore. So you'll see your hardware acceleration. So by default, any LUN would be supported on NetApp for hardware acceleration, but the NFS stuff, you actually have to go install the VAI plugin for NetApp on your ESXi host, and typically either and make a change at the SVM level to support vStorage. Basically, the hardware acceleration, also have NFS protocol set to the right versions. So there was some backend stuff we had to do, but once that was done and we mounted the data store, we're going to have it supported. If for some reason you didn't do that, the data store mounted, you can either unmount the data store if there's nothing living that you can't turn off, or reboot the host one at a time. So I could, demotion the VM over to the other one host, reboot, remotion it back, reboot the other host, to get them all to support it. And that is very important for this restore to make the NFS restore so fast. So it leverages VAI as well as the single file and I'm guessing, but I'm pretty confident of this, but NetApp supports single file restores from a snapshot. So a VM is composed of many files, but it could do a single file restore for each of those files. And that is simply reverting the blocks that were in the snapshot to the active file system. It's just changes of pointers. It's very, very fast. And I'm confident that is why this happens so quickly. Right? It's unregistered, so VMware wasn't trying to use that VM, converted the blocks, re-registered the VM, powered it on. So instead of all of that mounting stuff, it just did the single file restore stuff, which is much faster, and then power on just like the other process. We saw all that happen. And then, of course, I didn't have to do any cleanup. I don't have to storage remotion the VM and then remove those VMs later. And that doesn't affect my restore time, my ability to get to my data, but it does affect perfectly the process from start to finish. Okay, so again, I lost that machine. Let's go validate. I can get to it. It's back. I obviously could have put some file there, showed you that file, and restored and showed you that it didn't exist. I'm not too worried about that. I think everybody trusts this overall process. So it's taking its time. Connect. So maybe it's just not ARPing properly yet. Let's try it again. See if it goes fast. Oh, that VM, it's not on the right, no, it isn't right. No, it's not on the right network here for some reason. Maybe I didn't fix that. I couldn't tell you if I actually, oh, maybe I reverted to a time before I had that. Maybe it's not in the domain. Oh, that would be a bummer. It's not. So I reverted to a point where I didn't have it in the domain. So I'm going to go fix that because I want the one that was in the domain. So shame on me, but you still get the point of the test here. So I got to do another restore, even though it's going to be very fast. Another cool thing about a single file restore. So if you restore a complete snapshot of the entire data store, you would lose any, like you roll back in time, you would lose any newer snapshots. Since I'm restoring just an individual VM, I'm not losing the later snapshot. So I got that when I just ran. I'm really glad I did that. This was not planned, folks. It was me making a mistake that I can recover from. Good thing I made that happen. Boom, away we go. So while that's running, let's do a single file restore test with the other host, the iSCSI host. I think if I want to, well, let's just go get on that box. We'll go create a file, and we'll kick off the backup SnapCenter for Windows, because what the heck? Nice. Well, so I created a restore directory. That's where I tested to before. Let's see if it's here. I did this other test. I'm sharing out my local disks on my actual PC when I remote desktop into this. So I don't have my restore folder. This backup that I restored to didn't have it. And that's, if you don't want to restore your single files to the original location, which I could do, but then we wouldn't be able to validate it. We could do it here. And while we're at, we're going to create a new file. Important data. Text. Obviously not very important. Let's do something better. So it's 326. At 5:48 p.m. We're going to save. There's our important data we want to back up, right? And so now we need to go to SnapCenter for Windows. Let's just RDP in that box. Should have it up somewhere. Just because I think I have a better browser there. I think it'll perform a little better with Chrome. Let's see, what IP did I give it? I think it's this one. While that's happening, I'm going to jump over here, and I know my restore is done. I'm going to take the second time. It took 45 seconds, looks like again. Finish the second restore. We'll go check the first one. 33, it's not the right one. Good restore, there it is right here. 41:13, so that was 45 seconds to 41:58, and then another restore. Moved on me. 47:21 to 21, so that'd been 49 seconds plus 6 is 45. So 45 seconds both times, so that didn't matter. Something you'll notice with restores, by the way, when they do a restore, depending on where they end up, is just like booting the VM the first time, the memory is not throttled down. So you're going to see a memory spike when you do a full restore of any VM. And then it will die down as VMware figures out what's not being used anymore. So to validate this guy real quickly, let's see if he's in the domain again. It is, and his IP is back to what it should be. You can see he's in the domain. That makes us feel pretty good. If that restore was the one we wanted. Okay. So back to our other test. So our SnapCenter environment. So I haven't really updated these Windows 2016 boxes very much, but IE is not awesome. Maybe Edge would have been better, but I don't have it on these boxes yet. So I put Chrome on here. The performance of this application seemed to work quite a bit better. All right, so we're going to log in. Really secure environment with a single shared password. You want to hack my lab, knock yourself out. Good luck with anything you find. Not very exciting. So a little different look, right? I don't normally use SnapCenter for the SnapCenter server that's installed on Windows to back up VMs because you saw, I don't know why I'm doing this. I don't need this. I'm going off subject. This I could back up the entire VM, but I do want to demonstrate this real quick. But usually I'm using this for application level backups of things like SQL, Exchange. I can back up a file system, so I'm backing up these same two machines. And I was doing this to test whether or not, oh, I probably lost my plugin too. It should come back up. I had this installed before that ever happened. You can do it to just back up an entire machine, but you're doing it like you're backing up from the inside of the machine instead of from the outside, the bare metal. That should come up a little bit because obviously Test iSCSI did as well. One thing you do have to do is this is the SCVM that is the SnapCenter for VMware plugin or SnapCenter plugin for vSphere OVA appliance that you install. So you have to point to it for anything that you're backing up that is a VM, so it understands the NetApp volume that VM lives, that host lives on, because there's not a direct connection from that host to its NetApp storage. So it has to be able to map that. And so, of course, these are VMs. So the other two are the backups, right? So just to show you what you get out of this, which is not a single file restore, I could go to that iSCSI. I have some backups. I've been running them every hour. I could go to one and I could then do a restore. Unlike the other, I don't get to choose, or next here, I don't get to choose single file, which isn't what I really want. So this would essentially restore the entire volume that is that VM. Another option is I could clone it, which is how I would do a file restore. I could mount its drive to itself, and then go pick out the file, log into the server, pick out the file. And that works. It's a little kludgy. But instead of doing that, what made me happy, I would kind of expect a single file restore to be in this application. Instead, they put it in SnapCenter plugin for vSphere. So back to this NFS box, and we saw it when I went to SnapCenter, and I don't know, I forgot, and go guest file restore. To do that, there's a little bit of configuration you got to do in the background before we do this. I'm going to show you that. Essentially, telling it what it can, credentials to use. Okay, so I didn't back up yet. I better do that because that file's there, right? So SnapCenter, and well, I could really do it from here. I should get a They should give us a backup now option here. So I can show you that other piece. Let's go back to insert plugin. You tell I haven't used this a ton yet. It's changed a bit. I'm not super versed in walking through the system, but what I was talking about is guest file restore is you set up your run as credentials. That's the number one thing, and we'll come back here in a minute. And if you wanted to use a proxy machine, a VM other than the VM that had the backup taken, you could do that, mount it somewhere else, and then restore from there. I don't have that set up for now because I don't really need to. So let's go back to our backups, AKA resource groups. I wish they'd call it backups. And we're doing the one that's NFS, so it's not the name. Doesn't have NFS in the name of it. Okay, it's running. What did we see before? Oh, it was seconds. You might know what's happening. And it's done. Okay, so now we can do our restore. Back to our VM. Do our SnapCenter restore. File restore. So this process just initiates it. We got to pick which backup I want, the one I just created. And I don't get a choice of changing the locations or anything. I don't really want to send an email mainly because I don't have that set up. And then I pick which account I want to use because I could have multiple credentials for different reasons. And essentially away it goes here in a moment. So it's happy with all that. It's going to kick it off. I did notice that this is also slightly faster on NFS than it is iSCSI because again, you got to do the whole mount a FlexPhone data store and all that fun stuff. So that takes a little longer to process, but I was restoring that NFS box, so I didn't do this demo there. So while that's happening, we have to go back into SnapCenter plugin, back to our guest file restore. And now we're going to see that under the monitor, that's that restore. So it's spinning because it isn't available. We can't browse the files we want to restore yet. It's still getting everything mounted up and ready for us. Once it completes that, we can go pick out our files that we want to recover, which I want to go delete it real quick. So we have that important data. I'm going to delete that important data. Or better yet, no, let's delete it. What I was thinking about doing is changing it and then restoring the original to this location, which I could still do. And actually, that's a pretty cool thing to show. So I'll do both methods. So it's close. This little bar here has to kind of finish too. So once this last bit happens, we'll get the little icon that we can click on to browse the files we want to restore. And to prep you ahead of time, this is not the most overwhelming restore interface. It's rather basic, but it does get the job done. And there is very limited search functionality included that I can show you. I definitely wish it was better. It's not like a full-on backup software, but it's not bad. Beats mounting the VMDK and then logging in manually, doing some things like mounting the drive, giving it a drive letter, and doing it through the host. I could still do. Once this finishes, actually, I don't have to go here. I should show you that. Restore. We'll show you that. But this actually makes it a little more convenient, I think. Not in our example. So there it's done. You see it has some mount points. Some of these aren't useful. Two of them are built into the system. The system has them, and then the other two are the two drives that got mounted. It has one VMDK, so they're partitions. Let's go back to that machine. So we can see now, if we go to this PC, we have some extra drives here. E, F. E is the only one that really mattered. With this the recovery drive, and you'll know that because there's important data. On our C drive, important data does not exist, right? I could have drag and drop, but let's say this mount point, it was somewhere deep in a file system, and I'd have to click to go find it. And that's just not the most ideal method, right? So I wanted to use that app, or maybe I don't have credentials to log into that server myself, and I don't know the credentials; those were added by somebody else, and my help desk person, or whatever. I can still come here as long as I have rights into vCenter to do this. So I want to restore files that were on the E drive. And like I said, I can search for stuff here. I can search for, say, txt files. They only show me txt files. And there's my important data, apparently text.txt, because it added that for me. And I didn't catch that, which is fine, but that's worked out nicely. There's might have been other text files. Now I don't have to search for them. It does not search subdirectories. So if you wanted to do this, you wanted to find something within a folder, then I would have to clear that filter, which is kind of the kludgy part. Clear that filter, hit enter. Go into a directory, and then put in my pattern. And we see there's nothing in this one. Now I could go back. That part's nice. Let's see, it cleared my pattern for me. Okay, so now I can pick it, and that's the file I want to restore. Now I select the restore location. Notice it doesn't say, give me like, put it where it wants. Do I skip it? I don't want to disconnect because I want to show you that other process or the other piece to this, right? But I got to know what machine. So it's vCenter, I don't think knows DNS properly, so I'm not going to try to give it the DNS name. I'm just going to give it the IP. I think it's 120, 120. It's 120, so I got to put it on the C drive, and that was it. And then, as long as it's happy with that, I'll hit restore, and it's restoring the file. And I didn't disconnect. If I disconnect, it gets rid of this mount. But I wanted to do another restore here in a second. Oh, I did it in the wrong place. Shame on me. That worked out great, actually. Wanted to go to restore. Maybe I shouldn't have that trailing slash. We'll find out. I was a guessing game on exactly how it wants that to look. Weird, it's kind of ghosted that other stuff. Okay, it started, it's doing the restore. I go back to that host. I could have, of course, had multiple files. Should I have that option? So it is 120. So if I go look in the restore folder, voila, there's my file. And you saw me create the folder, I believe. So you know it wasn't there. And obviously I could copy it and paste it where I want it. And so that might be important to do, right? Put it somewhere else when you don't necessarily want to overwrite the file right away. You want to make sure that file contains what you're looking for. And now we're going to go do a modification so we can do a restore again. And so I'm going to say this is now, oh, we've been talking a while, 603. 1, 5, 603. That's like a type, huh? Save it. I'm not going to back it up because I made an edit that I shouldn't have made. Right, so I'm going to go just do another restore. You know what's going to happen. I'm going to overwrite it, but just to prove that. So txt again. And the file. My restore. So I got to pick it. Oh, duh. I'm going to pick where you're putting it back, John. 720. And I think all I have to do is that because I don't want to put it in restore, and I am going to overwrite. This time I'm going to disconnect to show you that piece. I'm going to do the restore. And see, it even gives me an example of the $3 without the trailing slash, so that Oh, we had it wrong last time. You'll see once this finishes, this is going to go away. So we'll on my server, I'll lose. Let's see if you can see it. You see it's detaching the VMDK. If I go back to this PC, I see I lost those other drives. MSC drive. It should have finished the copy, otherwise it wouldn't be removing the data store. And so notice my modifications gone, I overwrote that change. So I think that's about it for this demonstration. I think we covered what I was after. I wanted to show you guys really how much quicker an NFS restore is. And I really tried it at some point without VAI installed to see if that affects anything, hardware acceleration. So that might be a later thing, just for my curiosity, but definitely showed you the difference in LUNs versus NAS data stores and some of the benefits, at least when it comes to restore. There's some other things, deduplication, thin provisioning. Those have more direct impacts when it's a NAS data store. I have more room in the data store to put things if I'm deduplicating or compressing LUN. Then I have more room on the NetApp in this case, or my other storage platform, but not in that LUN. So I can't consume more, I can't put more data in the same LUN because it still thinks it's that full. Because the file system is owned by VMware, not the underlying storage system, in this case, like NetApp. So I can't tell, even though I deduplicated, I can't tell VMware file system that you got more room on that LUN because I've deduplicated some of your data. There's no mapping. So that's a benefit also, is I can just jam more stuff in the same NFS data store, where in the LUN realm, to get more space, I got to go create yet another data store with that extra space I have on the storage system. And NetApp world, that's an aggregate. So there's some other side benefits. But they both work, right? They do the job. So I will leave you guys with that. It's been a pleasure. Hopefully, if you have any questions, you'll let me know. I won't provide my contact information on this because I'm going to stick it on YouTube, but for those that know me, should know how to get a hold of me. For those that don't, hopefully this at least was useful to you. Thank you and goodbye.